There is no prison more terrifying than the one built inside your own mind, especially when the architects are the people you invited in for dinner. My name is Arthur. For 40 years, I sat on the bench of the circuit court, a man of iron and ink, weighing the souls of men against the letter of the law. I spent a lifetime detecting lies in the trembling hands of witnesses, spotting the bead of sweat on a liar's upper lip, and delivering sentences with a gavel that felt like a natural extension of my own arm. I was a man of absolute precision, a man who believed that the truth was a solid, tangible thing that could be held in the hand like a stone. But at 81, trapped in the master suite of the brownstone I purchased with my late wife in 1975, I have become a prisoner of my own biology, or so I was led to believe. My world has shrunk to the four walls of this bedroom, a space that smells of stale lavender and sickness. The heavy velvet curtains are always drawn, filtering the daylight into a murky, depressing gray. My niece, Carla, and her husband, Rick, moved in 6 months ago. They claimed it was to help after I had a mild fall in the garden, a stumble over a loose paver that resulted in a bruised hip and a bruised ego. At first, it was warm meals and fresh laundry. It was family. Then, the narrative shifted. Now, I am a ghost in my own home. I drift through days of thick gray fog, my thoughts scattering like cockroaches whenever I try to focus on them. My hands shake so violently I can no longer hold a pen. My memories slip away like water through a sieve. I lose hours, sometimes whole afternoons, staring at the wallpaper, unable to remember if I have eaten, if I have spoken, or if I am even alive. The story begins on a Tuesday. It is raining, a relentless, drumming downpour that rattles the window panes. Think isolation is suffocating. Carla controls my phone, keeping it safe downstairs. She collects my mail. She manages my diet. She tells me I have early onset dementia, a diagnosis she says the family doctor, Dr. Aris, confirmed last month. I don't remember seeing Dr. Aris in years. I don't remember the appointment. But Carla says I forgot it. She says I screamed at the nurse. She says I cried. I believe her. Why wouldn't I? She is my sister's daughter. She is blood. She is the only thing tethering me to reality. But on this Tuesday, a crack appears in the facade. It is 7 p.m. Carla is going out.
She stands in my doorway, dressed in a black evening gown that hugs her frame. She looks beautiful, but there is something sharp about her, something jagged. "I'm off to the charity gala, Uncle Arthur," she says, her voice pitched in that high, condescending tone one uses for a toddler. "Rick is downstairs in the den if you need anything, but try to sleep, okay? You've had a bad day." I don't remember being agitated. I only remember sleeping. "You look nice, Carla," I wheeze. My voice sounds like dry leaves scraping together. Then I see it, around her neck, the pearls. They are iridescent, creamy white, glowing in the dim light of the hallway. My wife's pearls, the ones Eleanor wore on our wedding day, the ones I kept in the velvet box in the safe, intending to be buried with them. I start to say, raising a trembling hand. Carla touches the necklace absent-mindedly. "Oh, these? Just costume jewelry, Arthur." She closes the door. I hear the click of the lock. It locks from the outside, a safety measure to keep me from wandering. I lay there in the dark, listening to the rain. My heart begins to flutter, a skip, a jump, a thud. The palpitations. I sit up, gasping. My chest feels tight. I need my medication, the lisinopril. It keeps the rhythm steady. If I don't take it, the atrial fibrillation kicks in, and the world starts to spin. I reach for the orange bottle on the nightstand. I shake it, empty. Panic, cold and sharp, pierces through the fog in my brain. I took the last one this morning. Carla was supposed to refill it. She said she did. "Carla?" I call out. My voice is weak. No answer. Just the faint sound of the television downstairs blasting a football game. I need that medicine. I can feel the rhythm of my heart going erratic, a bird trapping itself in my ribcage. I slide my legs off the bed. My feet hit the cold floor. I stand up, swaying. The room tilts. I grab my cane, heavy oak, a gift from my bailiff years or so, and steady myself. I try the door. Locked. But I am a man who knows the architecture of this house because I restored it myself. The bedroom door has a transom window above it, and the lock is an old skeleton key mechanism. The catch is loose. I jam the tip of my cane into the gap between the door and the frame, right by the latch. I lean my weight into it. I leverage 40 years of stubbornness. Crack. The wood splinters. The door pops open. I stand in the hallway, sweating, terrified. If Rick catches me, he will put me back in bed.
He will tell me I am confused. I creep to the railing. I look down. The den door is open. I see Rick's legs sprawled on the ottoman. An empty bottle of my vintage scotch, a 1962 Macallan, sits on the floor next to his hand. He is snoring. He is passed out. I have a window. A small, terrifying window of opportunity. I go back to my room. I dress in the dark. It takes me 20 minutes just to button my shirt, my fingers fumbling with the fabric, tears of frustration stinging my eyes. I put on my raincoat. I pull my hat low. I sneak down the back stairs, the servants' stairs that bypass the main hall. I move through the kitchen, avoiding the creaky floorboard near the pantry. I slip out the back door into the garden. The rain hits me like a physical blow. It is cold, soaking me instantly. I shiver, my bones aching, but I move. I open the garden gate and step out onto the street. I feel like a fugitive escaping a maximum security prison. I walk. It is 4 blocks to the pharmacy on Main Street. 4 blocks used to be a morning stroll. Now it is a marathon. Every step is a battle. My legs burn. My chest heaves. The rain lashes against my face, mixing with the sweat. I count the cracks in the sidewalk. 1, 2, 3. Keep moving, Arthur. Keep moving or you die. I reach Main Street. The neon sign of Henderson's Pharmacy flickers in the gloom. It is the old apothecary I've used for 30 years. I push the door open. A bell chimes. The warmth of the store hits me, making me dizzy. I stumble to the counter, dripping wet, gasping for air, clutching my chest. Mr. Henderson is there. He is younger than me, 60 perhaps, with gray hair and kind eyes. He looks up from a prescription pad and freezes. What? He asks, his voice full of shock. My God, Judge Sterling? Help, I wheeze. I haven't seen you in months, Henderson says, rushing around the counter to grab a chair. Here, sit down. You're soaking wet. Your niece. I collapse into the chair. I dig into my pocket and pull out the empty orange bottle Carla gave me. It has a label with my name, Arthur Sterling, lisinopril, 20 milligrams. I shake it upside down. A single pill falls out. It had been stuck to the bottom. It is small, round, and blue. I need a refill, I stammer, my teeth chattering. The blue ones, for the heart. I missed. Mr. Henderson frowns. He takes the bottle. He picks up the small blue pill. He holds it up to the fluorescent light. He adjusts his glasses.
He looks at me, then at his computer screen, then back at the pill. The silence stretches. Judge, he says slowly, his voice dropping to a whisper. The heart, I say. Lisinopril. Carla gives them to me. Henderson's face goes pale. He looks angry. He looks horrified. Judge, your heart medication, lisinopril, is white, he says clearly. It is round and white. It has been for 10 years. I stare at him. No, that's wrong. Carla, she gives me the blue ones. Henderson shakes his head. He places the blue pill on the counter between us. This isn't heart medication, Arthur, he says. Haloperidol, Haldol, he clarifies. It is a heavy, first-generation antipsychotic. He pauses, looking at my shaking hands. Part per triptyl, he whispers. That is a massive dose. Judge, that is enough to tranquilize a horse. The side effects include severe tremors, muscle rigidity, mental confusion, and memory loss. It suppresses cognitive function.
I stood there in the harsh fluorescent light of the pharmacy, listening to the rain pound against the glass, staring at the little blue sphere that had stolen the last 6 months of my life. I realized then that I wasn't losing my mind. My family was stealing it. If you have ever trusted someone with your life only to find out they were the ones holding the knife, hit that subscribe button, because I didn't collapse. I straightened my back. I decided to issue my own verdict. "She's poisoning me," I whisper. The words taste like ash. "Judge, I need to look at the records," Henderson says, typing furiously. "Okay, here it is. Carla picks up your lisinopril, the white pills. But she also picks up a prescription for herself, anxiety. But she pays cash for another prescription under a different name." "Rick," I spit. "It's for haloperidol," Henderson confirms. I start. "You could have a stroke," Henderson says, "or cardiac arrest." "No," I say. The fog in my head is still there, thick and heavy, but beneath it, something is stirring. A spark. The old judge is waking up. The rage is cold, hard, and familiar. It is the rage of the bench. It is the rage of justice. "No police," I repeat. "Not yet. If we call them now, she'll say I'm confused. She has the paperwork. She'll say I mixed them up myself. I need evidence." Henderson asks. "Give me my pills," I say, "the real ones." He goes to the shelf. He fills a bottle. He hands it to me. I open it. I take a white pill dry, swallowing it down.
I feel it hit my stomach like a promise. "And give me that blue one," I say. I take the single blue pill and wrap it in a tissue. I put the bottle of real medication in my sock, tucking it deep into my boot. "Thank you, Mr. Henderson," I say. "If anyone asks—" "I have been a victim for 6 months," I say, standing up. I grip my cane. My knuckles are white. I walk home in the rain. The return trip is harder. My body is screaming, but my mind is fixated on a single goal: survival. I sneak back through the garden gate. The house is dark. I creep into the kitchen. I check the den. Rick is still snoring, the scotch bottle on its side. He hasn't moved. I climb the back stairs, one agonizing step at a time. I reach my room. I close the broken door and shove the chair under the handle to jam it shut, making it look like it was just stuck. I strip off my wet clothes and hide them deep in the back of the closet, behind the old winter coats. I put on my pajamas. I get into bed. I lie there, shivering, waiting for the white pill to work, waiting for the blue pill to leave my system. That night, the evidence gathering begins. I cannot confront them yet. I am physically weak. Legally, they have the upper hand. Just yesterday, amidst the fog, I heard Carla on the phone mentioning guardianship hearings next week. If she gets that, I am dead. I become a ward of the state, or worse, a ward of Carla. I need an ally. I wait until 3 a.m. The house is silent. I crawl out of bed. I go to the large antique painting of the Founding Fathers hanging on the wall. I swing it aside. Behind it is a wall safe. Carla thinks she emptied it. She took the cash. She took the gold coins. She took the jewelry. But she didn't know about the false bottom. I pry up the felt lining. Beneath it is a burner phone, a Nokia brick from 10 years ago, and a charger. I plug it in. I pray the battery holds a charge. It lights up. I dial a number I know by heart. Ring, ring, ring. "Who there?" A voice answers, gruff, sleepy. "Sam," I whisper. Samuel was my bailiff for 20 years, a man of few words, absolute loyalty, and shoulders the width of a doorway. He retired 5 years ago, but he still sends me a Christmas card every December. "It's 3 a.m.?" Sam asks, instantly alert. "It's 3 a.m. "I need you to open a file," I say, my voice steady despite the darkness. "I need you to dig," I say. "Find out where Rick is gambling. Find out who Dr. Eris is, the doctor signing my papers. And Sam?" I hang up.
I hide the phone back in the safe. I spend the next 3 days acting. It is the performance of a lifetime. Carla brings me the blue pills. "Here, Uncle Arthur." I take them. I place them under my tongue. I nod. I drool a little. I let my hand shake.
"Good boy," she says, patting my cheek. As soon as she leaves, I spit the blue pill into the vase of dead roses by the window. Then I retrieve a white pill from my sock and swallow it. The withdrawal from the sedative is brutal. My body rebels. I shake violently. I sweat through my sheets. I vomit bile into the toilet, muffling the sound with a towel so they don't hear. But my mind is clearing. The fog is lifting. The gray world is sharpening into color. I remember where I hid the deed to the house. I remember my bank account numbers. I remember the password to my investment portfolio. I am coming back. I am sneaking through the house while they sleep, testing my strength. The trash can is full. I see strips of paper, shredded documents. I grab a handful of the confetti. I take it back to my room. I sit on the floor with a roll of Scotch tape and a magnifying glass. It takes me 4 hours. I piece it together. It is a document, a draft, petition for emergency guardianship. But underneath that, another document, DNR, do not resuscitate. It has my signature on it. A forgery, a clumsy one, but enough to fool a paramedic. And beneath that, a contract of sale for the brownstone to a developer who wants to gut it and turn it into condos. The closing date is set for Friday, the day after the guardianship hearing. They aren't just locking me away. They are liquidating my legacy. They are selling the home I built with Eleanor. And the DNR, that is the insurance policy. If my heart gives out from the lack of real medicine, they have ensured that no one will save me. I hear footsteps in the hallway. I shove the papers under the rug. I jump into bed and pull the covers up. Carla is on the phone in the hallway. She is laughing. "Yeah, he's totally out of it," she says. "He's basically a vegetable, babe. We signed the papers on Friday. Then we put him in the state home. The cheap one." She laughs again. I know. I lie there in the dark. I grip the armrests of my bed until the wood groans. I am not a vegetable. I am the judge. And court is in session. Friday arrived with a sky the color of a fresh bruise, purple, and swollen with rain that refused to fall.
It was the kind of heavy, oppressive atmosphere that usually signaled a storm, but inside the brownstone, the pressure was entirely man-made. The house was buzzing with a nervous, electric energy. I could hear footsteps pacing in the hallway, the sharp hiss of whispering, the clatter of china in the kitchen. They were preparing for my funeral, even though my heart was still beating. Carla came into my room at 8 a.m. She didn't bring breakfast. She brought a costume. "Time to get dressed, Uncle Arthur," she chirped, her voice tight with stress. She held up an old beige cardigan, one I hadn't worn in years. It had a coffee stain on the cuff and a small hole near the collar. She paired it with loose gray sweatpants that bunched at my ankles. I want my suit," I mumbled, sitting on the edge of the bed, letting my head hang low. "Oh, sweetie, no," she said, pulling the stained sweater over my head, roughly tugging my arms through the sleeves. "The suit is too uncomfortable. You want to be cozy today, don't you? The doctor is coming. We want you to look—" She didn't want me relaxed. She wanted me to look pathetic. She wanted the notary and the specialist to see a decaying patriarch, a man whose dignity had dissolved into stained wool and elastic waistbands. She refused to let me shave. I ran my tongue over the sandpaper stubble on my chin. It felt like defeat. "There," she said, stepping back to admire her handiwork. She reached out and patted my cheek, a condensing, rhythmic tap, tap, tap. "You look just fine." She held out the blue pill. I opened my mouth like a baby bird. I let her place it on my tongue. I took a sip of water. I swallowed the water, tucking the pill into the pocket of my cheek. "Good boy," she said. As soon as she turned to check her reflection in the mirror, I spit the pill into the sleeve of the oversized sweater. It joined the others I had collected over the last 3 days. Inside, my heart was beating strong and steady. The white pills I had been taking secretly were working. The rhythm was a drumbeat of war. My mind was sharp,
a blade honed on the whetstone of betrayal. But on the outside, I gave her the vacant stare she paid for. I let a little bit of saliva gather at the corner of my mouth. I let my hands tremble. I played the role perfectly. At 2 p.m., they gathered in the library. It was the room where I had written my most famous opinions, a sanctuary of mahogany shelves and leather-bound books.
Now it smelled of Carla's cloying, expensive perfume and the stale, nervous sweat of conspirators. They led me in. I shuffled my feet, leaning heavily on my cane, letting Rick guide me to the chair at the head of the long table. "Sit here, Arthur," Rick said, his voice loud. He looked impatient, checking his gold watch every 30 seconds. I looked around the table. The cast was assembled. To my left sat the notary, a young woman named Sarah who looked uncomfortable, shifting in her seat and refusing to look at me directly. To my right sat Dr. Aris. I recognized him now from the brief, foggy memories of the last year. He was a sweating, oily man in a cheap suit, with eyes that darted around the room like trapped flies. He was the specialist who had been signing off on my cognitive decline without ever asking me a single question. And across from me stood Carla and Rick, the vultures circling the carcass. "Arthur," Dr. Aris began, opening a thick file folder. He cleared his throat. "We're just going to ask you a few simple questions, standard procedure for the competency evaluation. Then Carla can help you sign these papers so you can—" "Rest," I mumbled, staring up at the intricate molding on the ceiling. "Exactly," Aris said, glancing at the notary to ensure she was recording this. I paused. I let my mouth hang open. I squinted, as if the question was a complex riddle in a foreign language. "It's the year of the cat," I whispered. Carla let out a sad, performative sigh. She looked at the notary with tragic eyes. "See, it changes every day." He gestured to Carla and Rick. I looked at them. I looked at the niece I had put through college. I looked at the husband whose gambling debts I had unknowingly paid. "Bluebirds," I said softly, pointing a shaking finger at Carla. "I see bluebirds." Carla smiled at the notary, a tight, practiced expression of grief. "He hallucinates constantly. It's heartbreaking." "I think that's sufficient," Dr. Aris said, closing the file. "The cognitive decline is severe and irreversible." Rick didn't waste a second. He slid the stack of documents across the polished mahogany table. "Just sign here, Arthur," Rick said, thrusting a pen into my hand. "Right on the line. Then you can have your ice cream." I looked at the papers. Petition for total guardianship. Transfer of deed. Do not resuscitate. The ink was black. The lines were straight. It was a perfectly legal murder weapon. I picked up the pen. My hand trembled violently, not from weakness, but from the colossal effort of holding back the explosion that was building in my chest. I hovered the pen over the signature line. The tip shook above the paper. The room went silent. I could hear Dr. Aris breathing through his mouth. I could hear the notary's pen scratching on her pad. I could feel Carla's greed radiating off her like heat from a furnace. "Do it, Uncle Arthur," she whispered. I stopped. I lowered the pen. "Wait," I said. My voice was different. The tremor was gone. The slur was gone. It was deep, resonant, and commanding. It was the voice that had silenced courtrooms for 40 years. It was the voice of the law. Carla blinked. I dropped the pen. It clattered loudly onto the table, rolling toward Dr. Aris. I sat up straight. I rolled my shoulders back, shedding the posture of the invalid. I reached into the pocket of my stained sweatpants. I pulled out a small, clear plastic sandwich bag. Inside were 3 small blue pills. I tossed the bag onto the mahogany table. It slid across the polished wood with a hiss, spinning to a stop right in front of Dr. Aris. "Haloperidol," I announced. My eyes locked onto the doctor's face. They were sharp as flint, burning with a cold, terrifying intelligence. 300 milligrams, I continued, my diction precise. A first-generation antipsychotic sedative, enough to lobotomize a healthy man. Dr. Aris stared at the bag. His face turned the color of spoiled milk. Carla froze,
Her smile curdled into a look of pure, unadulterated terror. She took a step back, her hand going to her throat. "What?" she stammered. "What?" "I went to the pharmacy, Carla," I said coldly. "On Tuesday." Rick shouted, his voice cracking with panic. He lunged toward the table as if to grab the papers. "He's having an episode. Doctor, do something." "Sit down, Rick," a voice boomed from the library doorway. The heavy oak doors swung open. Samuel stepped in. He is 70 years old, but he still looks like a tank in a wool suit. He filled the doorway, his presence a wall of granite. Behind him were 2 uniformed police officers and a woman in a sharp gray suit, State Prosecutor Martinez, a woman I had mentored 10 years ago when she was just a junior litigator. Rick froze halfway out of his chair. "This is an intervention," I said, standing up. I didn't need the cane. Samuel walked into the room. He didn't look at Rick or Carla.
He walked straight to the table, picked up the bag of blue pills, and handed a thick manila folder to Prosecutor Martinez. "We have the pharmacy records," I continued, my gaze locking on Carla, pinning her to the spot. "We know you've been swapping my lisinopril for haloperidol. We have the forged DNR order I found shredded in your trash can. I pieced it together, Carla." I turned to Rick. "And we have the bank transfers," I said. "The $200,000 you drained from my pension fund to pay off the debts you incurred at the Metro Casino." Dr. Aris tried to stand up. He was shaking, clutching his briefcase. I was misled," he stammered, sweat dripping from his nose. "I had no idea. The family told me he was violent." I barked. The sound cracked through the room like a whip. He collapsed back into his chair. "You signed prescriptions for a patient you haven't examined in 2 years, I said, leaning over the table. "You falsified medical records to facilitate a guardianship fraud. That is malpractice, conspiracy to commit assault, and fraud." The notary, Sarah, was standing now, backing away into the corner, clutching her stamp to her chest. "I didn't know," she whispered. "You are a witness," I told her calmly. Carla began to sob. It wasn't the pretty, delicate crying she used to manipulate me. It was the ugly, jagged sobbing of a child caught in a lie. "You were sick. You were old. You needed help." "You didn't help me," I said. My voice dropped to a whisper, but in the silence of the library, it carried more weight than a scream. "You poisoned me. You made me doubt my own mind." I looked at the guardianship papers on the table. I picked them up. I ripped them in half. "I am of sound mind," I declared. "I am revoking all previous powers of attorney effective immediately." I nodded to Martinez. The police moved in. They went for Rick first. He tried to run, shoving a chair in the way, but Samuel caught him by the collar. Rick screamed and fought, thrashing like a fish on a hook. It was Carla's idea. She said the old man was dying anyway." Then they went for Carla. She didn't fight. She slumped, her legs giving out. As the officer cuffed her hands behind her back, she looked up at me. Her mascara was running down her face in black streaks. "Uncle Arthur, please," she begged. "We're family. You can't do this." I looked at her.
I looked for the little girl I used to buy ice cream for. She wasn't there. Only a stranger with greed in her eyes stood before me. "I have sent men to prison for less," I said, "and they were strangers." I paused. I said, the word hanging in the air. She wailed. It was a sound of total ruin. They were dragged out. Rick was still cursing. Carla was still sobbing. The heavy front doors slammed shut, sealing the noise outside. The library was quiet. The only sound was the rain tapping against the window. Gentle now, no longer a storm. Prosecutor Martinez approached me. She looked at me with the respect I had thought was gone forever. "Judge," she said softly, "are you all right?" "I am all right," I said. I reached into the pocket of my sweatpants. I pulled out the orange bottle from the pharmacy, the real one. I set it on the table next to the shredded papers. "I just needed the right prescription," I said. That evening, the house was empty. The silence wasn't oppressive anymore. It was heavy with peace. Samuel stayed for dinner. We cooked steaks in the kitchen, opening a bottle of the Macallan that Rick hadn't managed to drink. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. After Samuel left, I walked to the library window. I looked out at the street, wet and glistening under the streetlights.
I saw my reflection in the glass. I looked old. I looked tired. The stubble was gray. The sweater was stained. But the eyes were clear. I am 81 years old. I have lost my family. I have lost 6 months of my life. But I am the master of my own house. I poured a glass of water. I took a single white pill from the bottle. I swallowed it. It tastes like dignity.